Hey everybody, my name is Justin with Realm Investors. I help people invest passively in commercial real estate, and the best piece of advice I've ever gotten was to trust the process, not the outcome. That's helped me a ton in my career, not just in sales, but in life. So put a process in place, see that process through. Don't focus on the outcome, just focus on working that process every single day.
Trust the process and don't worry so much about the outcome. So, were you were the original general managers of the Philadelphia 76ers, or when did you get that advice, Justin?
No. So, man, this was an old school mentor of mine. Right when I got into real estate sales, I was 18 years old, and like most people who get started in sales, I made a couple cold calls. I knocked on a couple doors, and after 2 weeks, I came to my mentor and I said, "Man, this isn't working. What's going on? This is maybe how you got rich, but this isn't. Like things must have changed." And he said, no, everybody thinks that way. Just trust the process. The process is if the benchmark then was, hey, ask 25 people every day if they want to move, or it was whatever it was. And he said, if you do that every single day at the end of the year, I promise you're going to make more money than most of the people in this office. And I said, I don't know. It's not really feeling that way. So, but I gritted my teeth and I finally did it. And I just kept doing it every day, every day, every day. And when I stopped focusing on, man, I didn't get any good appointments today. Oh, I didn't get any good leads today. Oh, nobody said yes to me today. I just said, forget it. I'm just going to wake up, do this, go through this every single day. And eventually things kind of hit off. And, he was right. So trust the process. Don't worry about the outcome. The outcome will come if you keep your process in place and follow through on it.
That's awesome. That's what I try to teach sales reps too. But a lot of times they get impatient, right? They get
Yeah.
like, come on, I want results now. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not
And who
often
doesn't?
how it
Yeah.
works,
Who
right?
doesn't?
Yeah. If it was that easy, right? Salespeople wouldn't get paid so much.
Yeah, and really, it's just sticking to it, and that patience is something that's learned. I still don't really consider myself a patient man, but I'm working on it. And it's one of those things. Yes, you have to be patient, but you look for small wins along the way. So it's not like you're getting nothing and until you get a sale or get a contract signed or something like that. You look for small wins along the way. Did you have an interesting conversation with somebody? Did you reconnect with an old friend that day? Like, you have to look for something small and compound those into eventually when you get your big win, a sale, a contract, or whatever that looks like.
Wow. So do you have kids, Justin? Because I just recently got married and I got two bonus kids, and they taught me a lot of patience.
Yeah, I'm not. No, I have a small dog, and that's it. So no kids, but maybe that's when the real test will come.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be patient to have children. So
Yeah,
they force you to be. They're great teachers, man.
yeah,
So I'm grateful for that. So cool. So you talked about real estate. That's what you do. So with that at 18 though, that was your first gig, and you haven't really changed industries or what?
yeah. So at 18, yeah, I sold real estate. Um, it really came out of looking at ways to avoid school, right? So my parents were very traditional at that time. That the best way to make money was to go to college, get a career like that, climb the corporate ladder. But both my parents, they really didn't like their jobs, and to be very honest, they didn't really make that much money. And so I was looking at that and saying, man, I don't want to not like my job. I don't want to make a little bit of money. I want to make a lot of money. I want to do it quickly. And I was looking into ways that I could do that. I'm 16, 17 years old, and I lived in the Bay Area, so very high ticket homes. You could do some napkin math and figure out, hey, a 2-3% commission on a $3 million home is quite the payday. And so, I went that route. When I was 17, I got my first job. I was an intern at a commercial real estate office. And then when I was 18, took my tests, passed that, and then just started selling homes. I don't sell homes anymore. For the past, about 4 years, I've been more on the ownership side in commercial real estate. So I help people invest passively in commercial real estate through like funds and syndications and other passive structures. But yeah, it's really been a real estate for a majority of my professional career.
Outstanding. Cool. So who are some of your early mentors, whether either in person or folks that you saw or read about that really shaped
Yeah.
the way that you sell?
Yeah. So I'm a really, really big Jordan Belfort guy. It's interesting. I mean, he's such an influential person in the space. His past is not so fantastic, right? But he has this really revolutionary way of selling, especially at the time. And I think it's finding who you relate to. especially now with social media being so widespread, with podcasts coming up. There's 1,001 sales influencers and gurus, and you can have the hard closers. You could have the guys who, put their nose down and they'll knock on 1,000 doors. There's guys who say, don't take no, ABC, always be closing. And, I think Jordan was just kind of a fit for my style. It made sense. It wasn't really, I think he's a little bit opposite from like Grant Cardone, where Grant Cardone is sort of like hey, outwork the problem. I think Jordan Belfort has more of a strategic way of going about sales. He's able to break down really in his book, Way of the Wolf. I love that book. I think every sales professional should read that book. Really talking about the psychology of sales, what the real goal of a sale is. And he talks about certainty and increasing levels of certainty in different areas. So I just resonated with that style a lot more. And I just think it's more effective than some other people that I've heard from, but there's different styles out there for everybody. And there's a lot of sales people out there who are very good at what they do. They just kind of have their own unique way of doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have his book right here, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And I'm about, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 pages in. So give us one of the lessons that you took from this one that's
Yeah.
helped you.
Yeah. So really, Jordan talks about sales is really about increasing certainty, right? So if you have a product, and almost everybody, assuming you're selling a product that's actually good, right? Where most people believe their product is really good. And let's say you're an insurance agent. If the prospect you're talking to is 100% sure that your policy would save them money with equal or better coverage, you'd be there when they needed you. They could call you, and if they need something, you'd pick up and you'd answer and you'd continue that support. And they were 100% sure all those things would come true. It's a no-brainer that they would purchase from you. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Everything, they're 100% sure. So the thing that prevents sales is just uncertainty, whether they're uncertain about you, uncertain about your company, or uncertain about your product actually delivering on what you say, right? Because nobody comes in and says, hey, I want you to buy my insurance. It is worse coverage and it is more expensive, right? Unless your solution is actually better, there's no reason why they shouldn't change unless they're just not certain enough to take action. So for us in the financial services industry, we have investments, and we might put an investment in front of somebody and say, hey, we're going to, give you a 20% average annual return over the next 3 years or 5 years. It's a phenomenal return. And if you were 100% sure that I would be able to do that, every single person would buy. Every single person would invest. So everybody, the reason why they don't take action is there's a little bit of doubt there. And your goal as a salesperson is to remove that doubt and move them closer to being 100% sure, or sure enough that they're willing to purchase or change providers or do something, take the action that you need. So that's really a big focus of the book. And he does it a lot better, right? And he breaks it down a lot better into different categories, but that's really the overarching method.
Okay. So that's certainly increasing the level of certainty. That makes
Mhm.
sense, right? Because sales is a confidence game.
Yeah.
I've got to exchange my confidence to you. And
Yeah.
in between there's often some blockers and things that get in the way. So that makes sense. That makes
Mhm.
sense to me. So with that, language is such an important part of that. The words we
Yeah.
choose, the sequence of the words we use. You mentioned
Mhm.
in our prep call that you want to talk some about NLP, neuro
Yeah.
linguistic programming, which I think is interesting. And some people get that as, well, isn't that just manipulation? So talk to me about what NLP is, Justin.
Yeah, so NLP, and Jordan Belfort talks about this in the book a lot too, is really the specific words you use and the tonality you use. Because we as humans, we absorb so much more of somebody's true message with tone and body language than actual words, right? And so it's almost like if somebody says your name, right? They could say Phil or Phil, right? And the same words, and you get wildly different emotions tied to it. You get wildly different engagement. You either get defensive or you get excited. So really, NLP is how the words you use impact how people feel. And it's the most simple way that's usually how I explain it. There's books that are hundreds and hundreds of pages that go very in depth to the deep psychology of it, but on a very surface level, what you need to understand is NLP helps you guide what words to use to elicit certain emotions. So in a sales perspective, a lot of times a big takeaway you could get is removing weak words or removing words that are uncertain. So, Phil, it's like if I'm here to sell you, and again, I'm in the financial services. So I say, hey, Phil, I have this investment I want you to look at. Yeah, it's probably pretty good. Right. Versus if I say, hey, Phil, I got this investment, man, it's really good. The message really is the same, but just inserting the word probably in there, it just takes so much away from what you're wanting to say. And a lot of people, you don't realize it, but they use what we call weak words all the time. Hey, I'll try to do that. I'll try to get that over to you. What does that mean? Will you be able to do it? Hey, if you come to our insurance company, we'll try to help you every time you need us. Well, what does that mean? You can't do that. That inserts doubt. And again, when your ultimate goal is to remove doubt and create 100% certainty, or as close as you could get to 100% certainty, every little piece of doubt pulls you so far away from that outcome. So it's really the study of language and how we as humans have evolved into absorbing so much more language than words. And a lot more of that still is in tonality and still is in body language, and how inserting or removing very, very little words in our sentences and in our pitches and in how we talk can influence people's decision.
Okay. So probably is definitely a weak word.
Yeah.
So kind of, or maybe,
Yeah.
those are weak words too.
Yeah.
What are a couple more, Justin, for folks listening?
Yeah. Try. Anything that's sort of in the gray, maybe, sort of, try, we might, I could, versus, yeah, I will. If you call me, I'll be there. Yeah, if you call me, I might be there. Right. So anything that just inserts a little bit of a gray area, try and maybe and kind of, a lot of those are really the biggest, most popular ones. But you'll notice that now that you've heard about it, or anybody listening has kind of heard this message, you'll start to notice throughout your life when people say these things. And sometimes they're uncontrolled kind of ticks, right? Because how a lot of people say or they'll say like, just as they're filling space. And I do the same thing. Weak words a lot of times are fillers too. But just because they're fillers doesn't mean that your prospect, whoever you're talking to, isn't still picking up on them and inserting doubt into really their subconscious. And we as people, we make our decisions emotionally and justify it logically. A lot of that emotion is going to come from how you subconsciously feel about this person or this product or this company.
Okay, so we're aware of those now. So how
Yeah.
do we remove them? I mean, do we have to write scripts out and practice? I mean, how
Yeah.
did you do that?
Yeah. So for me, it's a life change. It's a life change. Most of the time when people hear these things, you're essentially asking this person to rewire. For me, I'm going to be 30 in a couple of weeks. You're asking me to rewire 30 years of how I've spoken. And that's tough. But the first thing is, like most things, you have to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you can't fix it. And then once you're aware of it, you have to take steps to removing it. So for me, I don't look to use weak language in any facet of my life, not just when I'm selling or when I'm talking to prospects or business professionals. Even if I'm talking to friends and family, I don't use weak language, or I do my very best not to. Again, it's hardwired into a lot of us to do these things. But if you're aware of it and you'll start to notice other people saying it, you'll start to notice yourself saying it, don't use them. Always look to create certainty in whatever you're doing. Almost think of it in a personal sense. If you want to pitch your boyfriend or girlfriend to go try a new restaurant with you, you're not going to go, oh yeah, it might be good. You're really sick. Come on, sell me this thing. Oh, it's so good. These reviews are like that. Create certainty and speak with that confidence. All these weak words do is just relay that you're not confident. And if you're not confident, just like you said in the beginning, how can I be confident?
That's so interesting. It does come back to creating certainty, and it's so interesting you say that, because I've been told for much of my life that I walk like I know where I'm going. And I walk like I know where I'm going because either I do know or I know that I'll figure it out. Right. Like
Yeah.
my friend Leslie M., she's got a book called Swagger that isn't about like being arrogant or cocky. It's about knowing that I've been in a situation similar and I figured it out before, so I can stand tall and knowing that I'll figure it out again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Swagger is another great way to put it, because people who are very certain and who have been around the block a couple times, they've been there, done that. And that's really who you want to work with, is people who have been there, done that with whatever you're looking to buy. You want this person to feel like, yes, I've done this 1,000 times. It's not like we're kind of going to be there for you. We're going to be there for you. And I've seen it, right? So you want that certainty inserted in every facet of it. So especially in the sales process. But yeah, swagger is another great way to put it.
Yeah. Well, we have to believe in ourselves and our product and in what we're selling and that we really will be there. And that
Hmm.
comes from practice, right? We
Yeah.
have to, we kind of see evidence of that the first time, as you mentioned with your mentor. You weren't sure at first, and
Yeah.
amazingly, that when that changed, when you just trusted the process, that helped
Yeah.
you a whole bunch. So what are some other ways that we can get more certain, so
Mhm.
that we can, in our whole life, that we can be more certain and more confident?
Yeah, I would say be bought into things. So just like how my mentor, when he was selling me on sticking to the process, right? If he would have said, "Man, Justin, I think if you keep doing this, you'll make money," right? I think. Do you think or do you know? What does that mean? I can't go on that. I can't be fully bought in if you think this could maybe work. Yeah, if you do this, this will happen. And if he wasn't so certain in that, good chance I would have blown it off. So, Alfred, he doesn't know. He's established in his business. He has repeat customers. He doesn't know what it's like to get new customers. He doesn't know. But the fact that he was able to say, no, if you do this, you will get this. He instilled certainty in me to make it happen. So yes, a lot of times you practice, and a lot of this will come with experience. If you're for me, again, financial services, the reason why I'm so confident about a lot of our products is because I've seen the results. If I've never had an investment before, or I've never invested in real estate myself, or I've never raised money for deals, I wouldn't be able to go to somebody like you and say, "Hey, Phil, we're going to double your money in 5 years." I might have to say, "Phil, man, the goal is to double your money in 5 years." You know, there's risk, and we could, right? And there's of course risk with a lot of these things, but when you've been there, done that, and you get more experience under your belt, and you practice and you learn, you educate yourself a lot, that's going to help you expedite the learning process here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about that first sales job in the pitch
Yeah.
that you sent me. And by the way, I have to be clear. I don't usually take cold pitches. It wasn't. It was because we had a good connection there on our prep
Yeah.
call, right? So I don't like cold pitches. They don't usually work for me, but yours did. So with that, right? You said that you have a story of quitting your first sales job four
Yeah.
minutes before getting a call that led to a 60K commission. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that, Justin.
Yeah. So it was that same role. Right. And it was my mentor telling me, no, you got to do this. You got to stick to it, and you're gonna make a lot of money here. And so I stuck with it, and I knocked the doors, and I made the calls, and I stood outside of the grocery stores with business cards. And as people came in, I talked to them, and I did that nonstop. And I did it day after day after day after day after day after day after day. Um, and prospecting is essentially what I was doing. I had no business. I had no. It was real estate. I had no listings. I had no clients. All day I had free. I had no appointments. I would have killed for a couple of appointments, and now everything's double booked, and I got to reschedule a bunch of stuff. But you unlock a new set of problems with success. So I had no appointments. So all I was doing was prospecting all freaking day. And to me, I was a cold caller. For one way or another, it didn't matter. I had a dialer. I'd have my headsets on, and I would cold call 2 to 10 hours a day. I mean, really, I was a maniac because I told myself, hey, if this guy says if I prospect for 2 hours a day, I'll make good money. What if I just freaking 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day? I was blowing it out of the water. So I'm cold calling, and this goes on for about 6 months. And anybody who has been essentially out of work for 6 months, I wasn't getting paid. I had no business. I had no traction. I had no good leads. I had really what I thought was nothing, and just a lot of wasted time. And so 6 months go by, and it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I don't remember what it was. I think it was 7. Office was dark. Everybody was gone. And I just finished up a day of cold calling, and I pulled my headset off, and you probably had the big indent on the top of my head because the headset's been on for so many hours. And I put my headset down, and I said, okay, forget it. This was just a total waste of time. This isn't working for me. It's okay that it didn't work for me. It's just not for me. And I said, okay, I'm going to close up my laptop. I'm just going to leave, and I'm just never going to say anything. I'll just never see these people again. And part of what I would do is I'd go on Craigslist, and I would look for people who wanted to sell their homes on their own. We call them FSBOs, or for sale by owner. And I sat there, and I'm not going to lie, I cried a little bit, because to me, that feeling of failure just crushes you. The feeling of embarrassment too, when you're real estate, you tell all your friends and family, I'm in real estate. Are you selling your home? Who do you know that's selling your home? And I thought I had to go to all my friends and family and tell them, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. And I was crying in the office. I had my face in my hands, and I said, this is, this sucks. This feeling sucks. And I went to go turn my laptop off, and I saw one more pop up. One more listing came up. It was in a city called Pleasanton, in the
yeah,
Bay
I've been
Area
there.
of California. Yeah. Okay. So Pleasanton, and high scale neighborhood. And I looked at that listing, and I said, forget it. One more time, and I'll never do this again. I've made hundreds, thousands, or whatever cold calls. One more, and I'll be done. I'll know for sure I left it all out on the field, and I'll be done. I called, and Phil, if you're making cold calls and you've told yourself this is the last one you'll ever make, and you're just ready to go home, how do you think that cold call goes?
Whew, I'm gonna live it all hang out, baby.
Yeah, yeah, and it would, really, I kind of half-assed it, right? Because I said, forget it. This is the last one. Who cares? And I'm almost hoping she doesn't pick up. This person doesn't pick up, and she does. And I go through my script again. It's probably kind of half-assed. Who cares? I'm getting ready to close my laptop and leave for good. And I ended the script. It says, hey, if I can net you more money and do all the work for you, would you be open to hearing that? And she goes, sure. Why don't you come over tomorrow? And that was the first time anybody ever told me. I didn't know what to do. I said, oh, okay. And I'm like, where is my calendar? I don't even know where it is. And so I pull it up on the laptop, and okay, yeah, I'll come over at 6 tomorrow. We go over at 6, list her home. She buys her next home with us. They close on the same day, $60,000 net commission to me. And that was, again, that was the solidifier to trust the process. That was,
Wow.
I believed it for a short period of time after my mentor told me. Then I lost faith. And then right when I lost faith, it hit me. And so that was the big, gasp of, wow, this stuff will really work. You just have to go all out for it. So that's my sales story. That's my sales motivation. And that really changed the trajectory of everything I've done after that.
Wow, that is inspiring as well as a little bit heart wrenching, right? I mean, you get so far, and
Yeah.
it's one more, and you're like, "Yep, all right, I'll give it one more shot."
Yeah.
And thankfully, it worked. I mean, I've talked to that doesn't always happen. A lot
Yeah.
of times we give it one more shot, and it's like, "Yeah, well, that sucked. Okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna go do something else."
Yeah. And it could, chances are I would have never done a sales role again, or a commission job, or a bonus job. And it's totally natural for you to steer away from those things. But it just, like I said, that's what changed the trajectory, because very likely I would have never pursued sales careers or sales jobs or variable income jobs after that. I would just have no interest.
Wow, wow. So as a top producer now, Justin, tell me about, do you have a morning routine or an evening routine, or you got some secrets to your success here that's helping you other than obviously trusting the process?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer in routines. I'm huge in them. So yes, I have a morning routine. I have an evening routine. I have a lunch routine. It also helps when you have a dog. Dogs love routine. So dogs will, they're keep me honest too, because we have certain walks, certain days, we eat at certain times. For me, I'm an early riser. I don't think you need to be an early riser to be successful. I think that's, a lot of people think if they start waking up at 5 a.m., they'll be successful. Well, that's one piece of it, but you got to fill that time with something that's valuable. So I like to wake up, about 5:30 or so, and stay in bed for a little bit with, my girlfriend and the dog, and we kind of hang out for a little bit. And then I start working. I start working early. I like to work. I used to like to work out in the mornings, but now I do some competition martial arts and a lot of trainings in the evening. So, I'm a big believer in Hal's book, The Miracle Morning,
Yeah.
and the Miracle Equation. So, I get up, we have our affirmations. I just envision what a successful day looks like for me. I review my calendar, eat and walk the dog, and kind of gives me time to get clear on what I want to accomplish in the day before the day actually starts. And then I like to start working a little bit earlier, because it's probably the same for you. If you can get more work done in 2 hours before everybody else, than through a whole 8-hour day, right? When messages are coming in and you're getting calls and you keep getting pulled left, right, and sideways. So I like to do that. Then at night, I like to stretch. I'll meditate a little bit. walk the dog again, and then that's about it. But it's really how you fill that in between time and make sure that you're really working on the tasks that you need to work. Tackle your hardest task first, which are usually your most important ones, and set yourself up for a great day.
Wow. So do you do Hal Savers, or what do you do?
Kinda. I don't do all of them. I don't do them in any order. So I meditate at night versus in the morning. I will sometimes journal and write things down. Sometimes I don't. It's just one thing that I do think is really important is to have the vision for yourself. I go over goals every day. I go over affirmations every day. I go over just my plan every day. I get really, really clear on what needs to happen today for me to make it a successful day. And I think he talks about those in the books, but I don't obviously don't exercise in the morning. I don't scribe or write down too much. I don't journal a whole lot. I just haven't found that helped me more than meditating helped me. And I like to meditate at night because in the morning I'm usually very high strung. I'm ready to get going. I'm kind of impatient in that way. But at night when I'm winding down, I'm getting ready to settle down. I like to meditate and be a little bit more calm.
Excellent, excellent. So, what any other resources have you read, like Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits by PJ
Yeah.
Fogg, or any of the other books that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I am actually a big Atomic Habits guy. I actually reread that book about a month ago, and it just kind of revitalized my love for that specific book. I think that's the better habits book than I've read. I've read maybe two or three others, but that one's really good because you start to realize how much of your day is done habitually. I think in the book they cite about 60% or a little bit more, which is a majority of your actions throughout the day are habits. I think a lot of people experience this. If you're driving to work and you kind of snap at, you're like, oh my God, I'm at work. And you almost don't really remember driving there, right? Because not that you were being unsafe, but you're in a habit, and how you can trigger certain habits and how you can manipulate certain habits. And I think that's one reason why so many very successful people are so strict with like their morning routine, because that is leading into their habit. And their habit is, I'm going to have a productive day. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z that I need to get done to build my business. And they're leading into what they habitually do every single day. So yeah, Atomic Habits I really like. I really like Limitless. That one is a Jim Quick book. It's about
Yep.
brain training. It's about deep work. I'm a big believer in deep and uninterrupted work and minimizing distractions and training your brain to be able to focus and not look everywhere for notifications and pings. That stuff has really helped me a lot as well.
Awesome, awesome. So, Justin, if folks want to get started
Mhm.
developing process, developing routine, creating habits, so they can be one of the one percenters, what advice do you have for them? Where would you kind of point them on the journey?
Yeah, I think some of the books we just laid out are phenomenal because again, it's going to be how you set yourself up. And what you really want to do is you want to have intention every single day. I think so many people they go through the motions or they allow themselves to get really distracted in what they're doing, and they don't really just dedicate the time or the energy or the focus needed to get really really good at what they're doing. Let's say if sales is your thing and you want to be a better salesperson. Okay, are you putting aside even 10-15 minutes a day of focused learning and education to get better at that craft? Whether it's improving a relationship, learning a language, all these things can get done in very short periods of commitment every day. If you do them every day, you do them intentionally and you do them with focus. And so a lot of the books, we talked about Miracle Morning, Atomic Habits, Limitless, they'll help you set that up, set yourself up in an environment where you can really make that work and really flourish by putting yourself in that environment to be successful.
Outstanding, outstanding. Really great stuff today, Justin. I took some good notes here. So, if you were to give people one place where they can connect with you or learn more from you, where would
Yeah.
that be?
Yeah. So, our company is called Realm Investors. The website is realminvestor.com. Realm Investors was taken, unfortunately. And we do all things passive investing in commercial real estate. So if you love real estate, that's your flair. I would love to connect with you. If you love sales, that's your flair. I'd still love to connect with you. Guys like me and you, we have these kind of shows because we love talking. So I love to talk to other people, meet other people. I also have a podcast. It's called Passive Real Estate Strategies. Again, if you're into real estate and you want to build passive streams, a lot of our investors are sales professionals. So, the niche kind of fits up there. If those are your interest, those are great resources for you, but just reach out. I love to connect with people and I hope you get value out of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that, man. Love that. I'm going to pop that on the screen here so folks can see
Yeah.
that. The passive real estate strategies with Justin Moy and his team there. Great stuff. And then realminvestor.com to get to know Justin more. But get started, gang.
Yeah.
Fall in love with the process. Figure out what process that is. Find a mentor. Get going on that. And then get headed in that direction. And don't worry so much about the outcome. Great advice today, Justin. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.